Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Azure Flash News.
Right on.
It is December 14th,
Yes,
2018,
yes,
almost 2019.
All day.
All day today. It started at midnight.
Yes, it did.
Yes, it did.
Well, Central Standard Time for us, but
That's true.
absolutely.
Greenwich Mean Time, 6 hours different.
Oh, look at you, GMT.
That's right.
Got
You've
your
been
mean
there.
on. I have.
Yep.
I have been to the spot where they have the green line.
That's right. You can be at 0 hours Zulu time.
What is it? The Greenwich Mean Time Observatory, I think it's
it?
called. Yeah. We did a pop in quick when I was out there one time in the
Why
UK.
not? Because why not?
Absolutely right. I mean, in a nerdy kind of way, super cool.
Yeah.
Right. This is the line.
That's right.
And if you're black and white, zeros and ones, true, false, like most technologists are,
You wanna see it.
that is your binary line right
That's
there.
right.
Either you're on this side or you're on that side.
We keep track by UTC.
Now let me ask you this: if that line were an asymptotic line that was extended outward, as explained by in Revenge of the Nerds, would it diminish infinitely? Would it become infinitely smaller as it was extended outward?
Definitely.
Forever
I have
in
no idea
perpetuity.
what you mean. That's okay. All right.
That is
that.
an obscure reference from Revenge of the Nerds. Well,
Let's get.
Does anyone care?
Yeah, right. So we're thinking about Wormser and
Yes.
those guys.
Lamar.
Lamar. Yeah. Anyway, so enough about that.
Booger. Don't
Yes.
forget. Well,
Yeah.
I digress.
We
It is
do-
a beautiful Friday.
It is a beautiful Friday.
Yeah,
We have some
sun's
great
out.
announcements. The sun is up in Minneapolis.
I know.
It's been like
Sun's out, guns out.
the cloudiest December ever.
I know. It
God,
feels
it's
like
been-
it, doesn't it? It's been kind
Oh,
of dreary. I
man.
feel like we're in Seattle. I was thinking about growing my hair out and starting a grunge band. There's so many things wrong with that.
So for those of you who aren't watching,
the Chrome Dome.
the Chrome Dome just said he's going to grow his hair out. But
Right, and that
but,
is
but this is a great time to announce
What?
that we're going to be available on
YouTube.
YouTube.
Yes, good call.
So you
good call.
can see Rick's Chrome Dome.
Finally. I know.
Yeah, we're gonna
welcome to the 80s called and they want their video back.
Yeah, so we're going to go
Yep,
on.
we're starting a YouTube channel. We
I
recognize the
think we're going
value
to put it on
proposition.
I think we're going to put it on Friendster too.
Friendster.
Yeah. And MySpace.
Napster.
No, MySpace.
Oh,
Yeah.
MySpace. I like
Yeah.
Napster though.
Oh, you
I was
do?
thinking
Okay.
Napster.
All right, we got to get
Awesome.
to the
We
Azure
do.
news.
We do.
Okay.
And we're proving how old we really are. So we've got some good announcements. We've got some Azure backup announcements, which are
Yep,
exciting.
Azure
Some
backup.
Azure functions and Data Factory.
You got to do backups and you got to have data factory.
Absolutely.
Gotta do it.
Always on availability group creation, which is exciting.
This is kind of my background. This is
I
where I
know.
came from.
I know.
I love this
That's why I
stuff.
pull that stuff in.
Yeah.
Device certification and IoT.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
DR costs. We'll talk about.
How much does it cost, Rick?
I know. Well, let me tell you.
Okay.
But wait, there's more.
Yes.
We've got that, and last but not least, this is kind of a bread and butter thing, but static websites, some stuff there. So, yeah, some good announcements today. So I think we can kind of jump right in.
Let's do it.
So Azure Backup Server, basically it now supports SQL Server 2017 with some new enhancements. Okay, so with MABs, right? So your
MABs.
Microsoft Azure Backup Server, MABs, V3.
Yep.
I believe it's V3. Yes, it's V3.
Yep.
So ultimately, what it can be installed on Windows Server 2019.
Whoa.
But it can also use SQL Server 2017 as the backend database.
Oh,
right?
okay.
But wait, there's more, right?
Really?
So there's some cool enhancements, right? So from a security perspective, preventing critical volumes data loss, right? So we were just talking about this prior to the show about the delete star and the whoops factor and the how do you avoid that,
It
right?
does happen occasionally.
Well, with MABs, okay, which
Microsoft Azure
Backup Server with MABs, you can actually basically disable selection of certain backup volumes. So if there's a particular volume that has got critical data, and you do not want to be you don't want an unexpected deletion, you don't want somebody the whoops factor, right? You can actually disable that so they can't delete that.
Oh,
Yeah,
That's
right.
cool, man.
I know, totally.
That's awesome.
So getting rid of the whoops factor. Keeping in line with security TLS 1.2, right? So very important that we support.
that's
right,
coming
the
up a lot now.
cryptographic,
People
right?
are like, what's the plan with old TLS versions?
I know.
Everybody's got to get the TLS 1.2. It's true.
It preached in the choir, right? But it basically ensures, for those of you who don't know, which there's probably not a lot of you, TLS 1.2 certainly ensures secure communication, right? It's a cryptographic mechanism that
On the wire.
Yeah, on the wire, exactly. So
Yeah.
data in transit,
Encryption in
data
transit.
flight. Yep,
Yep.
absolutely. There's some storage announcements, so volume migration. So basically moving on-premises data sources, right?
Yeah.
So that that's a big part.
Just to kind of back up for a second, for those of you who don't know what Microsoft Azure Backup Server is, like, where does it play? Like, we have Azure Backup.
Yeah.
Why do I need Azure Backup Server?
Right.
If you want to do Azure, if you want to do your backups and you want to store those backups in Azure,
Yep.
you can use Azure Backup Server as kind of like a proxy,
Yeah.
a cache.
Yeah,
So like you can
absolutely.
do your on-prem backups
Yep.
with Microsoft Azure Backup Server.
Yep.
It's, how much does it cost? It's free.
Free like a puppy.
Free like a puppy. Free.
Free.
It's
No,
included.
yeah, it's included.
It's
Let's say
included.
that. You've paid for it already.
That's right. So basically, you can install that on-prem,
Yep.
pull in your backups, and then push that out to Azure. So
And not only that, but now you've got a potential, let's say you need to back something up on premises, but you don't necessarily want to restore it on premises, right?
Yep.
You've got this backup location that doesn't necessarily care where it gets restored to,
Yep.
right? You
That's
can
right.
restore it back to your on-premises location, or now you've got the ability, say, for example, if you need to use the new Ultra SSD, you can restore your database or your data volume, right?
Yep.
Onto an Ultra SSD. You get 160,000 IOPS at the top tier.
It screams.
And it's exactly, not literally,
no.
figuratively.
No.
Yeah. But so there's lots of flexibility here, which I think is really, really cool, right?
Yeah. Awesome stuff. Azure
Absolutely.
Backups.
So the other thing too is resilient. I just before we
Yeah.
we jump off of there is resilient change tracking, right?
Oh.
So when we're talking about, you've got consistency checks, right? So you've got to make sure that when you're doing this, you know,
yeah.
data corruption, all that stuff is a big deal when you're doing backups, right? Because I know, and I've had personal experiences, you know, you thought your backups were secure, you thought everything was good, and then you go to restore, and all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute. No worky, exactly.
Yep.
It's corrupted for some reason.
So you only have to do the consistency check on the deltas.
Right, correct.
That's the change there.
Exactly.
So it's good
So
stuff.
that's very good stuff.
So go check out Azure Backup Server.
Absolutely.
Azure Functions. Who doesn't love Azure Functions?
Right, exactly.
Everybody loves Azure
Well, right,
Functions.
everybody loves a function.
Yeah.
Right?
Everybody
loves
loves
a function,
Data Factory.
right? Everybody loves a function.
Let's-
It's like peanut butter and chocolate.
Yeah.
It really
and,
kind
and
of
bananas.
And banana.
Sure.
Oh, okay.
No, not
All
okay. So the thing is that for middle schoolers, you know what you call it? You know, like in our days, we used to say, you know, so-and-so and so-and-so sitting in a tree.
Yeah.
So today they call it being shipped.
Being shipped?
Being shipped. Like, so they're like, ooh, I'm going to ship so-and-so and so-and-so. They're shipped.
Okay.
Like shipped them together, they're going together.
Yeah.
I'm shipping Azure Functions and Azure Data Factory.
Right on.
We're going to ship them. They're together. They like each other.
Better together. No,
That's
it's
right.
a great.
So it's good stuff.
Yep.
So if you don't know what Azure Functions is, it's like just code as a service.
Serverless.
So
Yep,
you just
exactly.
say, I want to write some code. I want this code to run when I do an HTTP post to it.
Yep.
And you get a spot, you can write some code. That's it.
Yep.
Simple as that. So there's a lot less sort of ceremony, and there's no like big project files, and it's
Right.
just, it's very simple.
No,
It's
there's
very
no
simple.
pomp and circumstance.
It's very low overhead.
Yep. Love it.
So that's Azure Functions.
Yep.
And then Azure Data Factory allows you to basically coordinate and orchestrate data movement.
So we call that ELT.
G.
Right. Not ETL.
No,
ELT.
not ELT. ETL. Although with some new capabilities that are coming out.
I know, right? We're
We'll
blurring
do
the
that.
lines.
It's okay. It's
And
coming.
we like to blur the lines, right?
it's coming, it's
IaaS,
coming.
PaaS, ELT, ETL, let's blur the lines.
Let's do them all.
Yeah, let's do it.
But anyway,
I like
today Azure Data Factory is primarily an ELT tool.
Yep.
So you can actually pull data from somewhere. You basically drop it in its destination.
And then transform it.
And then you call an orchestrator to transform it.
And that could be Azure Functions.
It can be Azure Functions now.
If you've got something simple and it's going to run within a certain window, or you know it's a very discrete unit of work that you
Yep.
need to perform on your data, or it could be a series of functions, right? You may integrate this into like a rudimentary workflow where you've got function done, function done, function done, function done. You've got these discrete components. And what's nice about this, the thing I like about this is, if I want to make an update, say to one of those functions, it's compartmentalized. I just change that one function.
It's code that you
Exactly.
can deploy by itself.
Yeah. I don't have to completely redeploy this giant monolithic thing, right?
Yep.
This giant monolithic series of steps and
You could-
workflows and
You could
this
even have different
package.
teams.
Yeah, absolutely. You
So you
might
could
have
have
one
the
team that does. Yeah.
Yeah, one team that does the Azure Data Factory stuff that coordinates everything. But if a team who owns the function that does the transformation needs to ship a new version, just as long as they stay with the same
Yes. Signature on the
signature
API.
on the API,
Yep.
they can ship a new version without affecting
Absolutely.
anybody. It's awesome.
Yeah. So again, this is about agility and being freedom to innovate.
Yeah.
Let's surface it up to the top level and say this is freedom to innovate. You're not constrained by these giant monolithic units of work deployments. You've got this one little function. You're going to tweak it, and now you just leapfrog your customer or your competitor, not your customer.
Well,
You might, but you're going to
maybe.
leapfrog your competitor.
That's right. And so it also just reduces the risk profile.
Absolutely.
So in other words, if you're just deploying this one little piece of code,
right.
much better. So it's awesome. This is
Absolutely.
really cool. So
Yep.
you'll notice here I have a picture for those of you who are watching on YouTube,
Yes,
maybe,
or listening.
or listening.
In your mind's eye, imagine a picture with a graph, if you
Imagine
will.
a picture with Azure Data Factory on it.
Yes.
And there's a new button on there called Azure Functions.
Love it.
And so then that way you can basically set up and say, I want to call this Azure function per line, I think is how it works. And so in other words, if you have a row, Azure Data Factory usually runs on either JSON, a JSON record, or a CSV record, if you will.
Right.
And so then you can feed these records through this function and get output and write it back out. So
Love
it's really cool.
Yeah,
cool,
totally cool. So
All right.
we're on a data roll here, right? So
We are.
Automate always on availability groups, right? So
Wow, this is okay. So this is kind of wacky.
well, it is, and these deployments historically have been a little bit. Let's be honest, these deployments have been I won't say clunky, suboptimal, right?
Well, for a long time, availability group deployments on SQL on Azure has been PowerShell.
Oh yeah, well,
you had to run manual PowerShell.
Right, and so you've got a witness, you've got a primary, you've got a secondary, then you've got a domain controller primary, domain controller secondary, right? So that whole ecosystem, I mean, you're talking about what, 5 servers at a minimum, right?
Yeah.
And depending on how many secondary and tertiary or whatever it is in your always on availability group, right? Because you can add additional locations into that availability group. It doesn't necessarily just have to be per that cluster, right? You can add, I'm sorry, you can add VMs from other locations into that cluster.
Yeah, this is interesting because it's been something you can't. It's a guest configuration, if you will.
Okay.
Like if you wanted to install some stuff or whatever, you might use Ansible, or you might not Terraform. Terraform deploys infrastructure,
Right.
kind of like ARM deploys infrastructure.
Right.
But if you wanted to configure it, you'd use Chef or Puppet or Ansible,
and
et cetera.
any config management tool.
Any config management.
Yep.
But on this one, it's kind of part and parcel with the deployment of the infrastructure, because an always on availability group means like setting up the Windows clustering, setting up the availability group. And so now we've added the ability to set all that stuff up in the SQL resource provider. So as a part of Azure, you can use the Azure API to help you set up the cluster, the availability group, all that stuff.
So again, we're blurring the lines here, right?
Yeah.
Yet again. We're blurring the lines between configuration management and deployment management, or infrastructure as code, terraforming, which, by the way, we have an event that I'll talk about later. I'm really excited about this, but we'll get to that.
We'll get back to it.
But we're blurring these lines between what we consider, you've got infrastructure as code, but then you've got configuration as code. You've got, everything is as code. And this goes back to what I said before. The meek shall inherit the earth, and in this case, it's the software engineers, right? And
the developer, even if you're an infrastructure developer.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean, right? And if you're working really closely with your security team and your operational team, I mean, there's nothing you can't accomplish.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, there's nothing you can't solve for in this type of working model.
Yeah, it's cool. So if you're a SQL engineer,
Yep.
and you have struggled a little bit with, you have found deploying an availability group in Azure to be a little bit challenging.
Or if you're not a SQL engineer like me,
and you want to try it,
and you've done it, and you had to deploy it like 5 times before you actually figured out that, whoops, I forgot this, or I didn't know this, or I'm new to this, and
try this.
This is the way to go.
Yeah,
Absolutely
let's do
agree.
it.
Totally exciting. Love it, love it, love it.
Okay, so you were saying earlier that we don't talk about IoT enough.
Right, and the thing of it is if you consider our region, right, the Midwest, we have a lot of manufacturing, right?
We really do.
There really is a ton of manufacturing happening in the Midwest, and unfortunately, we've seen a lot of manufacturing in the last 20, 30 years move overseas, but manufacturing as a base, we still have a strong foundation here in the Midwest.
And we can help make sure that manufacturing runs as efficiently as possible.
Exactly.
Make sure that American manufacturing is competitive as possible. So
quality assurance,
right, all this stuff,
cost effective,
Yeah.
et cetera.
Yeah.
And we do that with IoT. One component of that is IoT.
No,
Let me say
all
that.
you need is IoT. No, not true.
It's like a Swiss Army knife.
That's right. It
Yeah.
does everything.
No,
No,
so-
but an IoT is like if you have stuff out there and you need to know what that stuff is doing.
Exactly.
IoT is the way to do that.
Massive ingestion engines, telemetry at scale, all the good stuff that you would come to expect from an IoT platform. Obviously, we have the IoT suite, and we've got those technologies.
IoT, IoT Central for kind of a finished SaaS
Exactly.
platform.
But we also have the certification process for Azure IoT devices, right? So basically what happens is you build your device and it goes through a process. And that process then says, yes, this particular device has been blessed to be compliant and conformant with the Azure IoT offering. our capabilities. You get a certification that says this device will work with Azure. I mean that's awesome, right? Because it's a checklist. It's the old Apple commercial. It just works.
Yeah, right. And it's a checklist so that you can partner with us. If you want to work with us, we will partner with you. We will come to the table and say, well, here are the things you need to do so that you know that your device is going to work well. And we'll work with you to make sure you get there.
Yeah, and so after you actually have a device that's compliant, we have a catalog of certified and compliant devices.
Oh, cool.
So instead of trying to figure out oh my gosh, how do I how do I ensure that this device is going to work with Azure? We actually have a catalog of certified devices. Yeah. So what we're announcing here is we have a streamlined certification process with Azure for the IoT for the certification service, right? So we look for consistency, like if you're revving your devices, if you're doing certain things, there's testing that you can automate and incorporate into that process. But basically what we're doing is we're taking these manual steps out of the process. So if you have a device or if you want to get a device certified, over the past year, we've made all these improvements to that process so that it's become as streamlined and efficient as possible, almost like you want to put an app in the App Store.
That's right. We want to make it that easy.
Same concept, right? Yeah. This is a device in the IoT store instead of an app in the App Store, a device in the device store.
Yeah.
So exciting news there. Obviously, it's a subset of customers that are interested in that. But if you're in the IoT space and you're certifying devices, or if you're looking for certified devices,
there's both sides here.
Exactly.
So if you're a device manufacturer, you want to get your device certified so that your customers that want to do it on Azure they know that your device is ready to go. Or if you're a customer looking to buy a device to use, you can go straight to the device store.
Yes, exactly. The other thing that's nice about this is if you are in the blog post, there are links to the Azure Certified for IoT program. So if this is your first time, if you've never certified a device for Azure before, it walks you through the guidance, all the steps you need to do, which are now minimized, right? So I say all affectionately, because it's been streamlined and it's been expedited. So definitely worth taking a look at if you are either in the business of trying to manufacture a device or if you're looking for compliant devices. This is win-win for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good stuff.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right.
So
I was just kind of curious.
Yeah.
I was just sitting there thinking, I have this stuff out in Azure, and I just, the one thing I really want to know.
What is DR going to cost?
What is DR going to cost?
I know, right? And that's a head scratcher sometimes because.
Not a hair scratcher.
No. Chrome Dome scratcher on this side.
Yeah.
It is a head scratcher, right?
It is.
I wholeheartedly agree that it is an art. It has been an art, not a science.
Yeah.
Right?
Because it's been tough.
Yeah.
I mean, it's sometimes there's a lot of components to pricing something, and we needed to come up with a way to kind of make it a little easier.
No, absolutely. And the other component to that is, in order for us to be able to tell you how much it's going to cost with confidence, we had to build up a corpus of information historically to understand what those costs look like. So when we think about disaster recovery, again, I think what we've traditionally done with customers, you're throwing stuff around over there, attaboy, is say, listen, why don't you just consider your DR cost a percentage of your primary site cost, right? So if your primary site cost is 100%, let's say your DR cost is going to be, if you're using an anemic deployment, or if you're doing some kind of,
or you could just be just backup,
just data, or just backups, it's going to be a fudge factor of X, right?
10%, 20%,
exactly.
30%, whatever.
Well, now, so configuring for disaster recovery using ASR, we can tell you you're going to incur these following charges.
Yeah,
right?
And like they talk a little bit about here in the article, they talk about, first of all, you need to do the ASR licensing per VM.
Exactly.
Network egress costs.
Yep.
Also storage costs. So,
of course,
how do we sit down with you and help you calculate that? Because it's how big are my VMs? I don't know. How much egress would I have to do because of because it's the delta factor on your VMs.
Totally,
right?
totally.
So in other words, if your VMs are static, then all we need to do is get the VM over there once, and then nothing else has to transfer.
Right.
But anyway.
So what's cool though is if you scroll through the article a little bit.
Oh, you want me to scroll?
Yes, please.
You're asking me to scroll.
You're going to see the interface estimates.
Oh, nice. Oh, this is in the Azure calculator.
Yep. So this is in the pricing calculator.
So if you don't know the Azure pricing calculator,
which you should,
because
it's a great tool.
It's pretty good. We should do a demo sometime.
I agree. I know a guy who's been doing a lot of work with the billing API and stuff.
I have been doing a lot of work with the billing API.
But that's retroactive. So this would be
this would be the other side of the coin.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, projecting costs.
So we do have the pricing calculator, which you can go in and add a la carte your services that you think you're going to be using in Azure. And then you can estimate your cost based on, you know, if it's VMs, the size, the number of disks, the location, because there is a cost of doing business in each region. Your price may vary slightly from region to region. So we factor all that in, and we try to give you a comprehensive, you know, here's what we think the cost is going to estimate is going to be based on what you just told us.
Sorry, I'm going to scroll back down.
Yeah, no, please, by all means.
Oh, no, wrong article. There we go. So you'll notice here that, well, I'll just flip over real quick to the price calculator. For those of you watching, you can kind of put this content up if you wouldn't mind, Emily. And so you can see here that it's at azure.microsoft.com, blah, 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 pricing calculator. Just go to your favorite search engine, Bing, and
I like DuckDuckGo myself.
That's true. No private. You're kind of a private guy.
I prefer DuckDuckGo.
Now, and you can go to Azure pricing calculator. It'll bring you here, and you'll notice here you can just choose the stuff you want to price. You can search, and you can even log in, and you can store estimates.
Which is cool.
Yeah, and then you can export them to Excel.
Yes.
It's actually pretty cool, guys.
I know, in a really nerdy kind of way. But I like the export capabilities, right? Because you're not relegated to just working within the browser.
Well, somebody always says, hey, can you send me that estimate?
Exactly.
What if I export it to Excel for you?
Right.
Everybody goes, Excel. I love Excel. That's perfect. So anyway, so check out the Azure pricing calculator. This is an additional capability.
Absolutely. Yep. So the ASR, the storage, the bandwidth. Basically, this is definitely going to help you determine what your DR costs. And it's going to be a much more accurate cost than doing something like, we think it's going to be about, you know, right? And I'm not sitting here telling you it's going to be absolutely 100% accurate and you should treat this like gospel. But it's going to be a heck of a lot more accurate than if you're making guesstimates, right?
Yep, that's right. Yep, that's right. So anyway.
Yeah. So super. I love the capability.
Heck it out.
And that's the other concern with cloud, right? Before we leave the subject, there's a lot of concern around spending, cost getting out of control. Well, this will give you one more tool in your toolbox to say, no, here's almost exactly what we think it's going to cost.
Yeah, it's an estimate based on facts is a lot better than the percentage estimate, right?
I totally
So we're
agree.
actually going to help you go out and calculate this stuff, and actually come up with a real estimate rather than just being like, 20%.
Yeah, that works in horseshoes and hand grenades, and that's about it.
Yeah, so we can do a better job estimating.
Yeah.
All right.
So last but definitely not least, or I shouldn't even say last. I've been told as a snowboarding instructor, you should never say last run. This is their last run, guys, because when you end up in the hospital after you get hurt, they'll say, they say, well, tell us how it happened. Well, it was on my last run for the day. So you're never taking, it's the second to last run, skipping the last.
Yes. don't do it the last run.
So this is not our last topic, so static websites on Azure Storage is now GA, okay? So
what do you mean by a static website?
Right. So the thing about a static website, the term static to me is a bit of a misnomer because through HTML5 and CSS, JavaScript, it can be pretty dynamic, right? There is a lot you can actually do. But when we talk about static, these are static files, right? They don't require runtime.
There's no server side.
Exactly. They don't require backend server side processing. They don't require JIT compilation. It is what it is. These are client side interpreted files.
So in other words, if you were running a JavaScript, I don't know, what are one of those JavaScript
you can use
front end?
Node. You can use.
Well, but I mean, I'm saying like one of those frameworks that you can use.
Yeah, Node.js. What's the big one that people are using? And they call it out specifically in this article here.
Aspect or whatever it is. I can't remember what it is.
You're close. You're close.
It's on the tip of my tongue. But it's like if you're using one of those Angular.
Angular, thank you. Yes.
Oh my gosh.
I know angles. It's angles, Jerry. It's angles instead of levels.
Yes. So if you're using Angular, for instance, that's dynamic, but the Angular files, there's no server side.
Exactly.
It all runs on the client.
Exactly. And so what we're doing is we're saying, why do you have to have this container and again all this pomp and circumstance around deploying and CS proj files and solution files? What if I just want to create a bunch of static files, whether it's Node.js or Bootstrap or well, Bootstrap is more CSS stuff, I guess. But whether it's or Angular or
but a CSS
React,
file would still be that would still be static. You're sending the CSS file down to them.
Yep, absolutely.
You don't need a server side processing to just serve up JavaScript files.
No, you really don't. So put in storage. Right? It's just going to serve up these pages. You're going to reference them via your storage endpoints. So if you've got HTML pages, it could be a single page app, right? HTML that's doing a lot of Ajax-y JavaScript calls to basically create write to the div, do all that stuff. I mean, it literally could be something as simple as one HTML file with a bunch of JS files in the back end, right? And I think in this example that Mark was just looking at, it's like, That's all it takes. It's an HTML file, a JS file, or
hey,
this
is the real thing.
I know.
so this is like an app on somebody's thing, and so you can see here somebody did static website demo web.core.windows.net, which you'll recall is kind of like the storage URL.
Correct.
A little different.
Yep.
But then this is a static website.
This is web.core though, so that's an interesting point to call out. So this isn't blob.core, this isn't files.core, this is web.core.
Yep. And you'll notice here that it brings up index.html as the default, which actually goes out and does a query. And anyway,
but you can see it's got your fave icon, you know, your ICO file, so it's going to show up in your toolbar if you have one. Yeah, otherwise, it'll default to the default icon.
It's pretty cool, man.
It's got your asset manifest, which is similar to like the functions, right? When you do Azure functions, it's got a bunch of that stuff in there. So yeah, no, it's a great way. Like if you've got a pop-up site you just want to throw up there.
So they're using React.
This is React, okay. Yeah. So if you've got a pop-up site, if you've got, you know, if you need to stand something up, let's say, for example, let's say you're doing an advertisement, but it's during peak season, right? And you're concerned about scale, you're concerned about a lot of other things. Maybe just take the static stuff, dump it into storage, and let that handle it. Let it handle the throughput, let it handle the requests. And if you combine this with something like Azure Front Door, for example, you want to talk about good luck bringing that site down. Now, of course, as soon as I say that, it'll, you know, I never want to tempt fate, knock on wood. But Front Door combined with something like this, and because you know you've got CDN, you've got all those other capabilities,
caching, all that stuff. Just think about it. If this is a static website, you can cache it all out on the
everywhere.
edge.
Yeah, totally put it on the edge. So yeah, stop the request from being choked by a single point of failure.
That's right.
Last but definitely, okay. So now we'll say second to last run.
Yeah,
second to last run. So I've been talking with the HashiCorp team here locally in the Twin Cities area, and so I'm super jazzed about this because. To me, it is such a complementary capability to Azure, and it makes Azure better, right? If you think about, you've got Console, you've got Packer, you've got Terraform, you've got a whole bunch of tools that are in that. It
isn't just Terraform.
No, it's absolutely not. So, what did you do?
Nothing. Go. Keep going.
So you've got all these capabilities with HashiCorp, and what we're doing is we're working on setting up a workshop, a half-day workshop in the Twin Cities where you're going to be able to come in, bring your laptop, bring your Azure account. Yep, a key. at your friendly neighborhood MTC.
Yep.
Which, by the way, I got an interesting email from, I won't mention names because I haven't explicitly asked for permission, but a CSA in Pennsylvania apparently was watching the show, and he too has an affinity for saying your friendly neighborhood CSA.
That's right.
So
we do have friendly neighborhood CSA.
Yes, we do, in every neighborhood.
That's right.
Look for something. We're going to hopefully put out some announcements and some event registration, some sign-up stuff. But the hope would be if we can make this and create a valuable resource to the community is to do a rinse and repeat. Like take it on the road. Let's do a road show. Let's go to Chicago. Let's go to Omaha. Let's go to wherever. You know, let's cover the North Central District and let's get our
Hey, you guys out on the show. Let us know.
Yeah, is it something that you might want in coming to a theater near you?
Please tweet us.
Yes, at Azure Flash News. Absolutely. Yeah. We'd love to hear from you. Love to know if this is something you'd be interested in. But yeah, so look for some. We'll be talking about. Of course, we'll be exploiting this revenue or this avenue for to communicate the information and the event coming up here. So super excited about that. I'm looking forward to working with HashiCorp. They've been awesome. Mad shout out to Joe and Austin, who have been great so far, and really, really fun to work with. So I look forward to keeping that going.
Yeah. All right. So
we are at the top of the hour.
Yeah, we are at the top of the hour.
So we've had some good announcements. We've talked about the YouTube channel.
We've talked about check it out.
Yep. The HashiCorp. In fact, what I'd like to do with the HashiCorp situation is if we do a 10 to 2, bring somebody like Austin in for the 9:30 show. So we can do a live broadcast. Sure. Bring in Austin. We can talk about HashiCorp. We can talk about all the chocolatey goodness. Just like we did with Ops Compass, right?
Let's do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm on that.
So look for that. That'll be exciting. And in fact, we will invite you to our studio audience if you are an attendee for the workshop.
We even have a small studio audience here today.
Right on. So
Rick,
yes, sir.
If people want to find you, where can they find you?
Please, by all means, email me, Rick, WEY at Microsoft.com, or I am the custodian of the Azure Flash News Twitter handle, so you can message me, DM me using the Azure Flash News Twitter handle.
And if you want to catch me,
at
mgarner on Twitter or mgarner@microsoft.com, either way, no problem.
Absolutely. A big thank you to the MTC and the facility, especially Emily.
Yeah, and don't forget, you can catch the show on iTunes. You can catch the show on Stitcher, also on
Google. Yeah.
Google. You can also, and we're going to start up our YouTube channel.
Absolutely.
We don't have it created yet, but
Yep.
we're going to do it. Actually, I think we're going to do it right after the show today.
Absolutely. And also look for some swag coming soon. We're going to have, I've got a final design t-shirt coming. Hopefully it'll be delivered in by next Wednesday, they said. Of course, it is the holiday season.
It is.
And we'll hopefully have some fun
so
stuff. So
early next year, look for the first t-shirt giveaway.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Look. Yeah, that's right.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love
Mugs.
it. Mugs.
We have stuff coming.
Chocolatey goodness.
We're going to be able to give stuff out for people who
our loyal fan base.
Who tweet us on at Azure Flash News.
That's right.
Yeah.
Love it.
All
awesome.
Right.
So we appreciate the time. We know that you guys have got a day job, and so thank you so much for tuning in. Whether you're downloading and listening to us on your schedule or tuning in on our schedule, we love it. We appreciate it. And, until we look forward to chatting with you same time, same place next week. But until then, keep your fingers on the keyboards and your head in the clouds.
Thanks, everybody.